Indiana Jones, It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute, the podcast in which we celebrate and discuss the film Raiders of the Lost Ark 1 minute at a time. I'm Tom Taylor.
I'm Pete Mummert.
I'm Gerald Christopher Marcus Porter.
Whoa. And joining us today, again, are our two guests from the Star Wars Minute podcast.
I'm Pete the Retailer.
And this is Alex Robinson.
Welcome back, you guys. Thank you so much for coming back.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
We are discussing Minute 17 today. And Minute 17 begins with Indy admitting that he and Abner Ravenwood had a falling out. And it ends with Indy excitedly realizing with Marcus that the Nazis have dis. I don't know why they're so excited about getting dissed by the Nazis. It seemed the world was getting dissed by the Nazis, but there you go.
It's funny they mention, he talks about how Hitler's a nut on the subject of archaeology and occult and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's so funny. Like, I guess it was a simpler time when, like, that guy Hitler, he's crazy. He's really into archaeology. Like,
That's why he's crazy.
Well, and what Porkins says is he's a nuts on the subject.
I've always tripped up on that. Like, is he saying
oh.
he's a nuts, or is it? Am I just misunderstanding that he's a nut or something?
I think he's hungry, and that's all he's thinking about.
Do you have any nuts?
He's nuts.
it'd be great if all his metaphors were, like, food-related, like, all based on food items.
I could go for some Wiener Schnitzel right now.
Yeah, I could slap that with a steak. I'm just making stuff up. I'm so hungry.
You mentioned in the last minute about comparing Porkins and other guy, Porkins and Superman 2 to Laurel and Hardy, and I wrote in my notes. This minute has been very maybe just because I'm a fan, but it seems like very Laurel and Hardy-ish, where the skinny Stan guy starts explaining, and as usual, the pompous Ollie just like has to take over and
Right.
And interrupt him. So I think
We stopped
very
just
funny.
short of doing the we've got some information here. Let me handle this. We've got some information here.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and as someone mentioned before, pulling rank.
Yeah. That's the interesting that the Laurel, if you will, Colonel Musgrove outranks Major Eaton, but Eaton is obviously the one kind of bubbling with excitement about the project or something. So that's
I actually saw it as the opposite. I saw him as being more like impatient and like, come on, let's just get through this because of this nonsense, this stupid,
Eaton,
chasing after artifacts kind of thing.
Alex on this.
When's lunch?
yeah. But it seems like it turns over the, because I think Eaton went in there with like, hey, I know what I'm doing, and you're just here to supervise me. But then, Marcus and Indy go so deep that eventually, by the end, we'll get to a. Is it in this minute? I don't know. How long do these guys keep talking? The whole time.
They talk for a while, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
But
it
kind of flips where Musgrove is kind of like, oh, I know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I've always thought that he seemed more interested right from the beginning. Like he's sort of like, oh, well, we come to the right men. Look at you guys. You got it all buttoned down. You know your stuff. And I think I have the Raiders of the Lost Ark novelization from 1981 in my hands. The tattered blue foil cover for those of you keeping score at home. And I'm not going to be able to find it right now, but I feel like I remember, even in the narration for the book, that Musgrove, who's clearly the more interested of the two, or something like that.
No, I agree. I think that Porkins is a little, bombastic and like,
Yeah,
He
whatever.
rolls his eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he does get drawn in soon.
Yeah, maybe in the next minute. Give the guy a chance.
I'm curious who this guy is, though, because in a movie that in so many ways is so perfect. Like the costumes, the sets, and Eaton/Porkins is wearing a suit that he bought at a Montgomery Ward's in 1981. It's a polyester, like Sansa belt suit. Is Porkins a time traveler?
I always assume so.
Maybe.
Well, don't forget, it's all a dream. So
That's true.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, and now I'm glad you brought that up, Pete, about the suits, because if you look at Indy and Marcus, they're donning monochromatic suits.
Uh-huh.
It's like Marcus's is just kind of straight black with a black tie, and Indy's is just sort of subtle brown, kind of like bullwhip brown.
that's a great name for a character, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
I'm your
That was a
sidekick.
wrestler in the 70s. Huh?
I'm your new sidekick, Bullwhip Brown. Where are we going? I do love, I'm going to keep saying this. I love Marcus. I love him in this scene. Like, as he's watching, at the very beginning, he's watching Indiana talk about, I call him Indiana because I don't know him that well. He's watching Indiana, saying like, we had a bit of a falling out. And Marcus knows the whole story, you kind of glean later. And just the look on his face, he's like, oh, Indy, you've had some tough times.
noticed
You've made
that.
some mistakes and you're having a hard time.
He opens his mouth like he's about to say something.
Yeah. That's just nice.
Yeah, it's a really cool, one of my notes for this is I think this might be peak Harrison Ford. I think Raiders might be the best acting job he did in his career.
I agree, actually.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that, but you're probably absolutely right.
And then when you put him in scenes with other people who can act, like Denham Elliott, it's really like it's amazing. It's synergetic. It's more than the sum of its individual parts in instances like this. And then of course, when you mix in William Hootkins and Glenn Fellows,
It's Hollywood magic.
that's just gravy. If I can.
Don't talk about gravy. I'm starving.
Well, here's some icing on the cake. A little bit of trivia I learned about William Hootkins on the internet. Did you guys know this thing about the Kennedy assassination?
Oh my gosh. No.
Wait,
This is awesome.
Kennedy's been shot?
Oh, sorry, Pete.
Not the DJ. Don't worry,
Yeah,
Pete.
spoiler alert.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, Hootkins grew up in Dallas, and when he was 15 years old, he was taking Russian lessons at a school, and that his he was interviewed because his Russian teacher had harbored Marina Oswald after the shooting.
Oh my
That makes
gosh.
sense. So I guess they're asking him about his Russian teacher, like who is this broad? Who's So there you go.
Wow.
Wow. So it's really Hootkinski.
Yeah, exactly.
Frankly,
where
we're
we're at
somewhat
now.
suspicious of Mr. Hootsky.
Well, I have in my notes that William Hootkins studied astrophysics and Chinese linguistics at Princeton.
Wow, he was everywhere. This guy.
He was, but definitely leaning towards the red communist languages.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
Did he pass away? Is he no longer with us?
He did.
He was
Yes.
killed at the Battle of Yavin.
He was. I just wanted to
Yeah.
confirm
Yeah.
that. Okay. I thought I
Did not
said
eject.
Thanks, Han Solo.
that. Yeah.
He told us he was all right.
Yeah, he insisted. That's what you get. He's a hero.
Great last words. I'm all right. I hope Matthew McConaughey's last words. I'm all right.
I don't want to jump ahead, but that's actually an unironic line from The Crystal Skull, isn't it? His buddy is like, I'm going to be all right. And it makes zero sense. You don't know what he's trying to say. Doesn't make any sense.
I don't know what movie you're referencing.
Does Crystal Skull also take place in the dream?
I think it only takes place in my Carbonite dream.
It's just a nightmare.
Yeah. That's right when they're Leia's releasing him from the Carbonite and things go really crazy.
Right.
Right. Well, that should be the interesting. That would be a good tie-in. That right when the bomb goes off in the beginning of Crystal Skull, then have that flash lead into him exiting that way you cut out all the stuff with Mutt and all
right.
that.
Oh, sure.
Aliens.
And the rest of the movie is just his fan fiction that he writes afterwards. He's retired on Endor.
Speaking of which, I have another item which might be evidence. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide. They're looking for the Staff of Ra, the head, the thing, the disc on the Staff of Ra. The Staff of Ra is the god Ra is an Egyptian god of the sun, and what is Ra's head? A falcon.
Oh,
The disc-shaped falcon.
And Han Solo would definitely know that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we're all in his dreams, so
Yeah.
he could do whatever he wanted. So
It was
Yeah,
almost
that's
a
true.
decade Ra. That's when he almost called his ship.
yeah,
I thought it'd be cooler
the
to-
decade rock.
Yeah.
That definitely made the list. We're up to 9 now.
Oh boy.
Well, and I think an overarching theme, at least in his dream, is he's still a bit of a smuggler.
Yeah. He's taking stuff from here to there, trying to get paid.
Yeah, it goes into the museum. Just the same
Quote,
ways
unquote.
it goes under the floorboards of the Millennium Falcon.
Right.
Well, it's when you have an anxiety dream. After you finished your test, he's got the anxiety dream that he hasn't paid off Jabba. So it's, I got to get this relic into the museum. It's
Right.
one more piece of the anxiety.
Yeah.
Always hustling.
Poor guy.
There's a really cool camera thing here. It's a camera move that I like a lot. It's kind of they do a similar thing in Taxi Driver, where when you have kind of two characters talking, and as they kind of come to an understanding, or they kind of, they're originally kind of one is in a position of power and the other one isn't, or something like that, and then as they kind of meet halfway, the camera moves down, so they're kind of at the same level.
Oh, okay.
And this happens with when the all the shots kind of at the beginning they're kind of at Indy and Marcus's level, and then it's kind of like looking down at Eaton and Musgrove. But then when basically they lean in and they're almost literally, they say like, "Let me level with you." Basically, they're all like, "Oh, this is strictly strictly confidential," and they kind of give him the scoop as he's making that kind of revelation. The camera kind of comes down and it drops to where we're suddenly level with them.
Yeah.
And it's a cool subtle little trick there that you might not consciously feel, but I think it comes from being we're with Indy and Marcus in a position of power where these guys don't know what they're talking about, and then suddenly they have their information, or we're putting the puzzle together, suddenly we're on the same level here.
Yeah.
I like
That's
that.
interesting.
I like that.
Yeah,
My
it's
notes,
good.
I have, why does Eaton keep staring at Indy's crotch?
You have to ask.
I guess this sort of helps explain.
Yeah.
In his mind, is
Harrison
it turning
Ford.
into a big hot dog because he's starving? Sorry.
It's no whip.
I think I noticed this the first time as I was watching it for this, but when Musgrove is getting down to business, he's like, this is all strictly confidential. And he, before he launches into the story, he kind of does a little look to the side, like there might be some kid in the band risers behind the curtain or something who's listening. He's like, no, wait a minute, this is strictly confidential. We're in the biggest, most easily eavesdroppable room in the building, right? Just want to make sure.
Musgrove definitely seams to be looking for approval from Indy.
Well, he's
he
struck
seems
by
really-
his charisma.
Yeah.
Really
wants
they
to
got
know.
matching bow ties.
I like this guy's style.
Maybe I should be an archaeologist.
So I think if this was, if Raiders was a musical, this would be the kind of like a lead into a song, right? This would be like, there'd be like a little piano bounce behind this as they went through all the,
Disney's listening.
and then I think at the end of our week, basically, it would lead into a big number about.
About Nazis, about Hitler being nuts for.
Right.
Did someone say nuts?
Yeah, it would start with the whole entire explanation would be a song, and then the song would end with and they want you to go for it. They want him to go for it.
Is it possible to do a Indiana Jones musical without it turning into just like the Disney stunt spectacular?
If you concentrated on scenes like this, maybe it is. Where you just have guys in a room sharing information.
Every scene would be all the scenes in between the action scenes, and it would always end with Indy coming in all beat up and being like, "Boy, that truck chase was crazy."
Will she still be with him? I made that up so I don't have to pay for it.
Oh, that's nice.
Good job.
Thank you.
I think Porkins will be like he'd be like a strong baritone.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Yeah, rounding
Shattering
it out.
glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it would be, well, there's only two of them, but I would love, I'm always a fan of a barbershop quartet kind of thing. So there's two of those guys, and you get Indy and Marcus, if they could get together and do, like, The Well of Souls, or something like that.
Did you just make that up? They
it's
don't
gonna
pay
be
for
a
that, do they?
No, yeah. Well, they will have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Not these guys, but, Disney. Whoever does the musical, they'll have to pay me for that song now. The Well of Souls
Well
song.
done.
Disney does own the rights to Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah. They
Yeah.
have all of Lucasfilm.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I can't hate on them that hard after I did like the new Star Wars.
They're doing something right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although
Maybe they'll kill Mutt.
I did read recently that they're using the same guy that wrote Crystal Skull to write the new one that they're making.
Yeah. David Cope. Is that it?
Right. But
Yeah.
the idea is we're not supposed to hold that against him because apparently all the stuff that nobody liked from Crystal Skull was all George Lucas's ideas.
Yeah. And apparently he's written plenty of decent stuff too. So.
Right.
Oh,
can't
poor
think of
George
what it is
Lucas.
right now.
He's
Yeah,
like
not to
that.
come
I
on
know.
somebody else's show and start bashing George Lucas.
Right.
George Flukas.
I was just watching we're getting completely off topic, but who cares? I was just, before we started recording, I was watching the Force Awakens extras stuff, like the making of and stuff. And they had a quick thing of, that interview that he had with Kathleen Kennedy in 2012 when they announced that he sold it to Disney and everything. And just seeing him, I was like, "Aw, George Lucas. I miss that guy. He used to be that Star Wars guy."
Whatever happened
Be
to
all
him?
right if he was still around.
Yeah.
Now he's in Australia eating noodles.
I saw that. That's crazy.
See, I think these couple of minutes yesterday and today also have the very best of George Lucas in them. Because when I think back to Star Wars and what I really liked, when Lucas sort of drops these little hints about Luke's dad and he fought in the Clone Wars, and we spent decades thinking about what that meant in our imaginations, and it built and built. And now in these minutes, we have sort of this great foreshadowing and backstory hinted at about Abner Ravenwood. And he never really gives us anything else, which I love.
Yeah, they did the same thing with Forrestal at the beginning. We know almost nothing about Forrestal, but we know exactly enough for it to be cool when his dead, dried up corpse shows up.
Right.
He's speared by a trident, and he's still, he's still sort of smiling and wily about the whole thing.
Yeah, that Forrestal. And even Belloc. We don't know anything about Belloc, really. We know exactly enough that these guys have a history, that he's bad news. Hopefully he doesn't show up in the movie again, because that would be bad for Indy. But yeah, it's nice. Economical, we call that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, not having, Abner Ravenwood is kind of like the Clone Wars of Indiana Jones, of this movie. Where it seems like a throwaway, but then it kind of comes back, and
Yeah.
but you don't see him, and then you spend a lot of time wondering about what their relationship might have been like.
Right.
Well, and in this movie, you have respect for Indiana Jones, and you're like, oh my gosh, that guy can do it all. He can command a classroom, and he's got the bullwhip, and he can go into the cave, and you're like, and they say, well, we've come to the right men, and he's like, no, Ravenwood is who you want.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now I want to know more about this guy. But the problem is George Lucas would actually really tell you.
Yeah, he's got two machetes.
Yeah.
And he just plows through the jungle, and yeah, he's awesome.
And that would be an interesting, like, rather than kind of, beating the Indiana Jones worth to death, if they went and did kind of the Abner Ravenwood adventures.
Yeah.
From the, let's see, if this takes place in in the 30s?
Yeah.
36.
Yeah.
So then, back up and go to, have it in the teens and maybe
I
around
like
the 20s.
Yeah, it could be World War One.
have him not really, maybe Indy could be kind of mentioned perhaps at some point because he's a promising student or something, but not,
And he's got his own TV show.
What?
Oh, they had the Young Indiana. Wasn't that basically the Young
yeah.
Indiana Jones Chronicles?
Oh, was it? Was Ravenwood in all over?
No,
that?
no. I'm just saying that's where Indy was.
Right.
At, at the time you're describing. But yeah, if it wasn't him, it was just like Indy's buddy or a future teacher or something.
And I'd like to see a Forrestal show.
He was good. He was very, very good.
Even a Belloc. Really, it just could be a kind of a archaeologist anthology series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about if you actually love archaeology, you would have a Barranca special.
Yeah. For the first few minutes of this movie, we were convinced that Barranca was the hero of the film.
Who's
And
Barranca?
that
He's
he's
he's the
the
guy.
guy who tries to shoot Indiana Jones in the back.
But where we sort of surmise that he's trying to protect the idol from a grave robber.
Oh, I see.
Which he is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is true.
Basically, yeah.
He's defending his religious freedom.
Yeah, and he's
That's right.
standing up for pure archaeology.
Or he's just real bros with the Jovitos.
Right.
Yeah. Don't worry, guys. I got this.
Which we learned shortly after that he apparently wasn't.
No.
Well, maybe they're upset because he failed them.
Yeah?
There you
Oh,
go.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe he felt the swift hand of Jovito justice.
Apology accepted, Barranca.
What is it about? This is another thing I didn't start thinking about until just now. They've got the message that they read: Tanis Development proceeding, acquire headpiece, staff of Ra, Abner Ravenwood, U.S. What exactly was it about that message and about that situation that got the U.S. government so interested that they had to go find an occult expert? Like, I don't know. Do they think that Hitler is up to something that is going to actually affect? Like, we're not even at war with him yet, with Germany. I don't know. Are they just so keeping an eye on him, on Hitler and Germany, that they're that anything that comes up they're going to investigate?
Well,
Well,
I think
he
this
was-
reinforces the fact that Porkins is a time traveler.
Oh, right.
Oh,
He knows how important this can be.
He knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, that is a weird question because theoretically there must be thousands of, unless they intercepted one that was directed to a powerful Nazi who, this was going to be on the desk of Joseph Goebbels, so it must be important as opposed to just being, going to some low, because there must be millions of telegrams going in and out of Berlin all the time. So
right.
why would they single out this one when it doesn't mention anything having to do with? Does it say is anything about Abner Ravenwood being American or anything?
It says he's in the U.S., I guess. It says find him, Abner Ravenwood, U.S.
Oh, so maybe
But,
that has something to do with it?
He
Yeah,
does say,
maybe.
why would an American be so prominently mentioned in a Nazi communique, I think, in a later minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
and they might
probably-
be wondering why is it, why are they in Tanis? Like, what are they doing in Egypt?
Yeah. But then Eaton just said that that's happening all over the place. So why are they singling out this? Unless they have, there are government guys at every archaeology school in the country asking about different guys and different digs.
Well, I was going to
and-
say, did they go to, was Indy the first place they looked, or did they go to Belloc first and ask other notable grave robbers if they had heard any, why this would be? Because it sounds like they don't
Yeah.
really know. Do they know about Indy's relationship with Ravenwood? I don't think they
Yeah.
do, because they seem
They only say
Yeah, they seem
Yeah,
surprised.
they know he studied under him, that
Okay.
he was a student.
right.
And it sounds like, I'm surmising that Brody apparently is the, according to the screenplay, he's the curator of the National Museum in D.C. So maybe they're like, oh, we're in D.C. Let's go to that museum and see if we can find any archaeology experts. And they probably went to Brody and he's like,
Wait.
the guy you want is Indiana Jones.
In Chicago.
Oh,
Oh,
no,
they
he
studied
went to school in
Connecticut.
Chicago.
In Connecticut.
Yeah, in Connecticut.
So Brody commutes from Washington, D.C. to Connecticut.
Yeah.
Right.
for
Takes the
his,
Acela.
Yeah.
Well, they
You're
know
only
that
gonna-
Hitler's up to no good, and he was a bit of a treasure seeker, hunter. And I know
He's nuts
Pete,
on the subject.
he's a nuts on the subject.
A nut.
He
And
is a
Pete, I
nuts.
know you know a little bit more about this, but there was historically it kind of overlaps in there. There was a department in the Third Reich that dealt with archaeology, and I think Heinrich Himmler started it. Is that right? He headed it.
Yeah, it was the Ahnenerbe. Heimlich Himmler started. It was sort of an archaeological research group where he was trying to prove the supremacy of the Aryan race. But it is. I think it's funny that the Germans are looking for a Jewish artifact.
That is weird.
Well, they kind of address that later on, don't they? When one of the Nazi commanders is kind of like sniffing his nose and it seems uncomfortable at this Jewish ceremony.
Right. Yeah, but then what did he expect? Like he's been, spending millions of dollars probably trying to find this extremely Jewish artifact. Like at some point that was going to come up, wasn't it?
Well, you think if whoever has the ark is they can't be, they're indefeatable, undefeatable. You're gonna have to edit that, Tom.
No,
make me sound smarter.
I'm gonna elongate it.
And
that's impossible.
So you're like, Hitler wants to get that. Hitler wants to get that. But at the same time, you're like, yeah, but there is this Jewish thing. It belongs to them. It's an ancient Hebrew artifact. I mean, maybe he's kind of barking up the wrong tree when it terms where he's going historically.
Right. Well, he's nuts. He's nuts on it.
Yeah, that's true. He's nuts on it.
Well, all right. Do we have anything else for minute 17?
I don't.
As I do my Star Wars minute impression?
Just 1936, the year this movie takes place, was the year the Olympics were in Berlin. So,
oh, really?
So I guess Hitler had other things on his mind besides his obsession about Jewish artifacts. So
not easy being Fuhrer.
No.
Guy some slack. All right. Well, Pete, not the retailer. How do we? How do all the nice people out there find out more about us and get in touch with us?
Well, hopefully you enjoy the show. If you do, you can find us on Facebook under Indiana Jones Minute. You can find us at IndianaJonesMinute.com, and just as importantly, you can find our fantastic guests at StarWarsMinute.com, and definitely give their podcast a listen. It's fantastic.
Yes. In fact, go back, listen to their entire catalog, and then come back tomorrow for minute 18 of Raiders of the Lost Ark right here on the Indiana Jones Minute.
We supposed to do that together?
It's more charming if we just chat about it.